your answers unplugged here.
Well, I'll start because I've had this stance for a very, very, very long time. Um, I don't know. I think for a long time people have been buying pre-existing domains and using the existing domain authority, but I would have to say that from somewhere along the lines of 2007, 2008, we had a process down to build rankings quickly enough that I never felt like it was worth it to go buy basically used car.
Right.
And
A lemon.
well, you take your chances with it being a lemon, right?
Right.
And try to take that domain and make it do what you want it to do. So I just avoided the hassle and bought new cars and would use those. But the interesting thing, I think, is within the last year, we've had several updates which have made the question more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have a lot of people approach me, and they'll show me the inbound links, and they're like, "But look, it's a good site." So I would love for Jimmy to weigh in and tell me what he thinks and how he feels.
Jimmy, what do you think? How do you feel?
Well, I like to have complete control over the domains I'm using, whether it's for the money site or for backlinking.
Right.
Just because, when updates come out down the road, you can never really. Nobody knows 100% what it's going to be, and it's just nice to have control over all those properties so you can adjust accordingly as big updates come out, which sometimes over the course of the years many people have had to do. So, but when you start out, so if you think about if I get an existing domain, first off, I don't have control over the links that are pointing to that domain. Whereas if I do a new domain, any link that I point to it, I try to have 100% control to.
Gotcha.
So it's a big difference there as far as how much control you're giving away right out the gate.
Right.
And, we have, just for an example, I kind of pulled up some pictures here of a possible PBN that we could use.
Okay.
And hopefully you can kind of see this.
Yeah. I think we're capturing that just fine.
So, when you look at these types of sites, I mean, overall, if you went and looked at the metrics here on Kemper, that's the link research tools that we often use for our SEO analysis. Overall the links are not bad, but you still got it's about a third of the pie there that's toxic. And we don't. So when you initially look at it, it's pretty good overall. Like when you're just looking at it in the list, but there's still a third of those links that could be potential game changers. And
Right.
obviously this site doesn't have a lot of links, but you have 9 toxic compared to, the rest that you have, and that can really sway things in a direction you don't want to go when you're trying to rank something in the search engine.
Gotcha.
Well, let me ask you something. Let's say that you're taking a look at a domain that's got a DA of, say, 26 or 27, something that, takes a moment to actually acquire. If I'm looking at a third of those links that are toxic and I get rid of that, how much of that domain authority is going to go away?
It's a good question. I mean, when you look at a lot of domains, I mean, typically, I think Toxic 3 are some of the malware and hack sites and things like that. So, will it go away? Can you counterbalance? You can, but, I've found that when you do link building, like if you build a ton of links, that lowers your trust score because, the more citations you have, typically the lower average of trust you have on the flip side.
Right.
Right.
So whereas if you control those, and let's say I controlled all those links, I can maximize that trust flow because it's not being diluted by the sheer quantity going through the site. So I just think it's more beneficial to just start out brand new. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
didn't quite answer my question, but if I can rephrase what I think I heard you say is
Hmm.
like if I'm looking at a site and it's got, let's say, 2,000, 3,000 inbound links to it in order to make up a domain authority of somewhere in the 20s, then what you're really telling me is that per link, my trust is pretty low. And even if I add some quality links to that, it's not necessarily going to move it up the rankings very quickly.
It's true. It's kind of like, we go over this in the domain authority stacking course a little bit, and we talk about boulders versus little pebbles.
Right.
If you have a boulder sitting on one side, um, or bigger chunks of rock, but you already have a ton of little pebbles on one side, you might have to really, to get that trust to even balance out to zero. Sometimes you have to add a lot of those boulders, and so you might end up having to put more links to it that are a lot more, higher trusted authority sites versus having to do a bunch of little, you know, versus if you started out the gate, the scale's already tipping in your favor.
Right. So I can actually rank quicker and easier with a brand new domain that's unencumbered by a bunch of smaller links.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, it's just it's dragging your trust down, and so it really depends, I guess, on the skill level of the person going in and knowing like what type of links to apply and where and how many and um. But I would say for anybody starting out, a new domain is going to be better than trying to go out and use a existing domain that's got some DA, might have some bad links on it to try and use as a money site.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and one of the things, this is not my area of expertise, the backlinking, cleaning up toxic links. And so I have clear, salient memory of the scary things that I've seen. Again, not to overhype the fear or anything like that, but things that you have said to me privately when we've looked at certain sites, and especially in the situation where someone has purchased a domain from auction or the rest, and they thought it was one thing, and then they came to you, either one of you, with that, an hourly consulting or something like this, and discovered that the domain is really bad, and it didn't always come up, or they didn't know how to look at it. Specifically, I remember like links from China in one case where you helped
Yep.
somebody realize that not only was this domain useless, it's like way worse than useless, and they didn't even know that because they didn't know how to look. So to me, it also speaks to the major issue where I think this question comes from: which, should I buy used domains, and if so, when? And how much of an expert do I have to be in order to make use of them?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Russ. Yeah, that was when we were talking about, before you buy it, that was in regards to PBNs where you're trying to look and see what the history of the site was. But certainly if you're trying to repurpose a domain for an actual money site, I mean, you never know what the purpose, even though you're thinking it's going to be a money site, doesn't mean that what that person used in the past was a money site. They could have been using it as a door, some kind of doorway page, a forwarding type situation. It could be, a link, part of their link farm network. It could have been a number of things where, on our end, it looks good for a money site, but it could have already been tagged by Google, many years back as,
Yeah, and
being highly toxic. So,
yeah, so it brings up the question of how much skill. I guess I'm trying to say this as gently as I know how. I'm surrounded with an awesome team with excellent skill. I generally wouldn't tend to buy a domain. I have some skills myself, but I wouldn't tend to buy a domain without showing it to, my team who has a level of skill that I would consider to be like extra high. So, that's just my general out of the gate thought when speaking to like a brand new person who maybe is just now getting into this stuff and trying to determine whether they blow. I think the thing that concerns me is I talked to somebody who was about to blow $18,000 on old domains because they used some kind of domain assessment tool or one of the various ones out there, and they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't really have a mentor. That kind of stuff is where this comes into play, right, Sue? I mean, it's like, don't you got to be careful. Like, don't blow money on pre-existing domains unless you really know your stuff or you have a mentor teach you.
Well, I mean, the upshot of this conversation is just wouldn't blow money on the pre-existing domains, period.
Damn,
So.
you just came right out and said it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I was trying to be diplomatic, but no.
Nah,
Jimmy, Jimmy, okay, can we get a little bit gray hat then? You guys, I'll cut this out if you don't want this on here. Is there ever a time when you, at a level of like super elite, crazy mastermind ninja skills, would buys pre-existing domains now in 2015? This is January 10th, 2015. Is there a time when you do it? Can you?
Yes, I still do it, but I'm not gonna go into the details of why.
Okay, all right. But that's my point. That's enough. The point is that the reasons that you do it are so crazy advanced, like stuff we cover in our live certification events, stuff that we gloss over, in other of our advanced certification training, swallowyourmarketwhole.com. But the point is that this is not like, okay, I just started SEO last year. I'm starting to get the hang of it. I've taken some courses and now I'm gonna, blow $5,000 on pre-existing. You guys are saying like thumbs way down.
Well, and think about it.
She's like, yeah.
Think about from this perspective too. Like, let's say you're using it for a backlink in this sense.
Sure.
You typically purchase old domains to use as part of a private blog network or other means to link to a site you're trying to rank for.
Right.
And even those domains, you definitely get the power out of them. There's no doubt about that. But the links that link to that domain, again, you don't control. You can't control, the trust portion of those, of what authority's linking into that. And so, that's a big reason why, domain authority stacking and DAS came into play, is just because, power has certainly always been there and it's been a key metric for so long, but really you need to start, especially in today's SERPs, I mean, you got to be able to bring in that trust metric that is what Google is relying on. In fact, I'll bring up a picture here that I thought was kind of interesting.
So the quote, the whole thing's broken, ain't worth fixing, is true 99.9999% of the time with purchasing of used domains. That's what I hear you guys saying. I know I'm repeating myself, but okay.
Particularly since, if you don't know how to get your domain authority up on your site pretty quickly, we've got courses that'll show you how to do that.
Yeah.
Domain authority stacking, our one feed stuff, we've got plugins out there that'll help you do that.
Social explosion, which by the way, I found backlinks to a site that I was examining. We test on IR&D all kinds of backlink tools. Like I think it was Cognitive SEO pulled up some social explosion links. I was so proud of us. WPSocialExplosion.com, guys, develops trust automatically. I love that.
See, and look at, when you're looking at these, I've pulled up this image a few times before. I mean, this was a study that was done, I think, in 2014. It could have been towards the end of 2013.
Hey, Jimmy, can you put that to full size? Just click that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so hopefully you can see this a little better, but
there you go. That's much better.
And this is just even ranking for, like local type keywords. So this would be like Houston barber shop or, something that has a locale based on it. And, look at these top ranking factors that are associated with this. Number 2 is the domain authority of the website. Number 4 is the quality/authority of inbound links to the domain. Number 5, quality authority of inbound links to the landing page URL.
Yep.
I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, before it was a straight power play, but now you're really looking at, this site says about this site, but who's that other site kind of thing. So like who's, if you don't know somebody and you go up to a stranger and they say, hey, you should really go check out that cookie shop. You're going to be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, if your friend recommends it or somebody that you trust and they say, oh, you really got to try this cookie shop out or,
right.
Go get this cupcake or whatever. I mean, you're more likely to go, see and
yep.
You trust what your friend's going to say over somebody that's not really an authority to your own personal self.
Yep.
So I think Google's moving more and more towards that kind of, and it's just been showing up in the links more and more over the past 2 years. So
Got it. Okay, well, here's another question. I'm going to put myself in the position of the student who's saying to you guys, but, what if? Let me ask you, and this is the time to do this since I don't get you guys except every Friday for these types of questions, because I can already hear them coming in. What if, does this apply for domains, Sue, that, or Jimmy, let's say like serious investments? Like I talked to one person, they run a multi-million dollar online business, and he was looking at, a $30,000 domain, which had a really high domain authority overall, and was thinking that he could use it as a booster site or something like this. In other words, real money to invest. Okay, does this still hold true? I mean, Sue, would you reallocate, or Jimmy, would you reallocate that money towards a different kind of campaign? What are there still times when you have money to invest in really high domain authority sites that are theme relevant? Would there be a time when, you would tell them to go ahead and buy it, or?
There's so much that you can do with $30,000 when it comes to online marketing.
Right.
Like there's so many incredible places where you can point to that and get an incredible ROI.
So like the live certification event where we teach people only at live certification to get a domain authority of 90 in such and such a date would cost way less than $30,000 what you're telling, which by the way is the cost of our event.
Well, really bird price is $20K. But
oh, you're right.
So here's the thing, right? But for that same $30,000, you can learn how to do it for free over and over and over again.
Exactly. So I guess that was a roundabout way. I actually did not intend going into this conversation with pitching certification. I really didn't. I was actually talking about a real case. But it is interesting.
Right.
But it is interesting when you think about reallocating resources, because I know it costs way less to generate domain authority using your guys' methods, using our domain authority methods.
The one instance that I would say that maybe it might be worth putting that kind of money into a site is, you really got to weigh and leverage the existing brand equity that a site may have inherently. If you can walk away and spend $30,000 and know that the return's going to be going to you, automatically. I mean, if you go in and you buy a well-known company, certainly that would be a different case for me. And I think you can talk more even about brand equity. And
okay,
well, so that's true. So if I were going to buy a company, like let's say that I'm picking up a company that's for whatever reason, and they've broken out the line items for the stuff that I'm paying for, and their website comes in at $30,000. Yeah, absolutely, no brainer.
Okay, because that brings in. Yeah, so what you're really saying, that's really interesting because Sue, I've talked about this over the years, business brokering. Because what's interesting about our company for people listening or just tuning in for the first time is that, we're not exactly only SEO. This is only the stuff that you're hearing here is some of the highest powered SEO. At our live certification event and in our training, you'll hear some of the most advanced SEO training in the world. There's hands down, that's kind of acknowledged. But we're not only SEO, we're not only traffic generation, but we are also business architecture, not just website silo architecture. And business architecture is where a lot of people of the event, when they come to our live event, are quite surprised at how much they learn. In other words, like, wow, I didn't expect to get a whole online business, Harvard level business education. Well, the reason that's important is because, the website is only one part of the investment portfolio when you're buying and selling a business. However, if there are ways, for example, Sue and I both have professionally assessed, the value of a business online. There's a lot of other factors besides just backlinks that come into, like, how much is the company worth? What are the monthly revenue sales? If there's actually an income stream coming to a site, that's entirely different than just buying a domain for like a PBN, a private blog network, or something.
Absolutely.
I think that's what Sue was saying, and Jimmy as well. The brand equity does matter. And at that point, if you've got a cash flow positive domain, that's not how they're really sold on the flip sites for domain auction sites. They're not selling businesses; they're selling domain for juice, more or less, or trying to. Did I repeat that fairly well? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Jimmy, does that make sense? A business purchase is different than just a domain for PBN manipulation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and let's step it up a notch here, Sue, because you've done this. You're a very expensive consultant. Both of you are, as well. So am I. Over $1,000 an hour consulting. Sue, you and I have actually assessed businesses. What are the steps? This is up a notch from just SEO. What are the steps that you would have somebody go through when they're about to sell a website or about to purchase a website that includes, in escrow, it actually includes how much they're making per month. Like, what would you tell somebody who wanted a business assessment to purchase or buy a domain with that whole next extra level of business architecture underneath the SEO architecture?
Yeah, I actually have a multi-step process.
Okay, but
It's not.
that's the certification event.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, another reason to come to our live events is our first one is in April of this year. These are the things that we talk about pretty much on Friday. We get into those processes. And do you want to share a couple of maybe sneak peeks about what you do for clients when they come to you with these questions?
You'd have to look at the traffic. You'd have to look at the mailing list. You'd have to look at how big the footprint is that you've got out there on all of the different social media platforms, not just the ones that you own, but also things that are outside your reach. I would take into account how many social platforms you have and what the traffic comes in from those social platforms.
Yep.
All that kind of thing.
Yep. So what Sue and I do generally, and of course, Jimmy hasn't done one of these with us yet, but we will have some coming up this year. A business assessment brings in a big deal for me on my side of the neuromarketing is how many people are on your actual email list. Of course, that's big, and everybody knows that in the list building trade. But there's a potentiometer or an algorithm that we take where we take the mailing list, the amount of traffic to the site over the course of a year. We have to authenticate whether that's real traffic, because you guys would be surprised with the games that we've seen played in the Flippa market. There's all these things that we have seen business owners really get screwed when they're trying to sell their business or when they're trying to buy a site that's supposedly making money. It has to be proven. And so these are the things. And then we've gone into something that's way beyond SEO, but just want you guys to be aware that there is that process. So just to wrap this up, you guys, the main place from an SEO perspective, the main place where they can learn what you and Jimmy are talking about in terms of domain authority stacking, where should they go to learn more about this, Sue?
Our domain authority stacking course.
Okay, that's still available out there. So domainauthoritystacking.com is one place where you can start to dip your foot in the water here. A lot of it's really covered. We do have our advanced memberships at networkempire.com where you can learn more about this. And of course, the serious guns is our live certification events or our advanced training. Our advanced training is different than our core membership area, and that's a step up for people who really want to enter into the flow of the Harvard level SEO training with Jimmy and the advanced technical training with Sue, and of course the neuromarketing training. We have semantic web training. And that you can visit at swallowyourmarketwhole.com, where you can explore each of the stackable layers of the full web ring system that in-house we call the one web ring socially activated semantic web integrated domain authority stacking and traffic system. This is a whole integrated and complete educational system that's taken us 10 years to build with what I happen to know are some of the most advanced minds in the industry when it comes to SEO, neuromarketing, semantic web training, and software development. Does that about cover it?
Yep.
Okay. Jimmy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day from blowing stuff up and building all the domain authority. And Sue, thanks so much for taking your time out today from running 4 businesses. I know it's not easy to get on the same page, but I know that our audience is very excited about these weekly broadcasts.
Thanks, Russell.
All right, all right, you guys. We'll see you next week, where I will try to grab these guys again for a new topic. And next week, we're hoping to explore a complete case study with SEO silo architecture. But we'll keep you informed on what this next broadcast will be. I'll talk to you guys, and we'll see you on the inside.